Good morning, Marianas. We have a special report for you this morning. Breaking news coming out of the office of Speaker THERESE here on Guam. I'm Troy Torres. Thank you for joining us here live from our studios on the 7th floor of the DNA building in Hagåtña, Guam. It is March 15, 2023. It is the Ides of March. And on the Ides of March, sometime before the birth of Christ, more than 2,000 years ago, Cassius and Brutus led a group of about 60 members of the Roman Senate in literally stabbing Julius Caesar in the back. We have a story for you today, breaking news coming out of the Speaker about how our governor, Lulian Guerrero, has stabbed in the back not just the people of Guam, but decades of leaders of this island trying to win back land for original landowners, or probably more appropriately, pre-condemnation owners and their heirs. And this has to do with Eagles Field. But beyond that, this has to do with a major promise the military is breaking to the people of Guam, a promise that was made in the programmatic agreement of 2011, which jump-started the military buildup here. When we come back from this commercial break, I'll take you through the Speaker's message this morning and the chronology of the events that have led to today. Join us. Stick with us through this commercial break.
Dull knives are the absolute worst, but I will take any dull knife and put a razor sharp edge on it so you won't have to hack or try to saw your ingredients when prepping your food. I sharpen knives, cleavers, machetes, and much more. Shoot me a text, WhatsApp, or give me a call for more information on how you can get your knives sharp.
I feel that this environment is for anybody that wants to try something new. Whether it is CrossFit or powerlifting, we offer a safe space for someone who's never been athletically inclined to try something that they've never done before.
Welcome back. Before we get into this discussion, Eric, so I got our breakfast this morning. We got our coffees. I got supercharged. Eric got Machu Picchu, right?
I appreciate you.
How is that Machu Picchu?
Dude, it's.
Is it better than the supercharged?
You know what? No, you know the supercharged. I like the I like supercharged, but there's some days, bro, Chelo, if I jam the supercharged in the afternoon or whatever,
You cannot sleep at night?
cannot.
Yeah, I wouldn't drink the
Cannot
supercharged
sleep.
in the afternoon. Yeah. I have insomnia.
But that Machu Picchu is really good.
I got my protein bars. We both scarfed down our shoe pals already. We have the mini donuts. These are the most delicious donuts.
They are, dude.
They're these little donuts, but they just... They're really good. And I gave Eric the bag. So these are all from Circle K 76. I also stopped by Main Street Cafe, and I got us 4 of those Chamorro donuts. And stupid me, I gave the whole bag to Eric. And so Eric, during the break, he was like, "Man, Chelo, these donuts, they were really good." And I was like, "Were? Did you save me one?" And he goes, "Dude, Chelo, good thing you said that. Can I have my donut now, please?"
Yes.
Please.
Okay, stand by.
I would like to. I appreciate you,
You know, I like to think of others.
son of a gun. He goes, "You have to tell me these things beforehand, because otherwise it's gonna be gone." Thanks. Is it still warm? I appreciate you. No, not this donut. The Main Street donut.
Oh.
The Main Street. Okay, so while Eric's giving me that donut, I already have the pink one. That's fine. Oh, thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
So the governor, tonight, she's having her State of the Island address. And apparently, every State of the Island address, whoever's the governor, they talk about how great the finances are, even though that's a lie. They will talk about how great the economy is and leave out the parts where, like, lots of people are suffering. And we've been going down the foxhole of poverty for a couple of decades now. They'll talk about how education is their number one priority, and they're going to do this, that, and the other thing with education. Like Simon Sanchez High School, governors have been saying
For years.
they're going to build Simon Sanchez High School since literally 2014. And then they have a big announcement to make. There's always an initiative, and apparently, we don't have an embargoed copy of the speech, but apparently tonight, the governor was going to make the announcement, and she probably is going to sign a lease that this afternoon at 3 p.m., according to Speaker THERESE, the Admiral is going to deliver to Adelup a signed lease, leasing 102 acres of Eagles Field, or what is the Chamorro name that Speaker Terlaje called it? Not
Lålo.
Lålo?
Or something like that.
Eagles Field. Fadian.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to diminish anyone's work on the Chamorro language.
About 50.
But, can you guys just tell us, give us a map of, all these ancient Chamorro names that the villages used to be called so that we're not confused when a new one comes up? We knew it before as Retidian, but, apparently it's Letexan.
Yeah.
But that was, a new thing when Retidian became, a thing, right?
Right.
And thank God they didn't change the name of Pauget.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, anyway. So, the speaker discovered this. She said that there was a closed-door meeting which raises questions about the Open Government Act and the legality of this meeting that occurred allegedly among the governor, certain members of the legislature, and the Admiral yesterday. The Admiral apparently at 3 p.m. today is going to deliver a signed lease to Governor Lulian Guerrero, and it is my guess that at the State of the Island address tonight she's going to sign the lease herself, committing the government of Guam to a 100-year lease of Eagles Field from the Navy, land that the Secretary of the Navy, as of December or January 2021, we have the letter that we can bring up for you.
Braithwaite, right?
Said was he was about to declare as excess, which would have returned the land to the pre-condemnation owners, a couple of whom still are alive. Now, this letter, can you increase the size of this letter? It was Kandit that actually found and brought this letter out into the public the first time that we heard that the governor wants to build $1 billion hospital and medical campus and public health campus at Eagles Field using 102 acres. And in this January 2021 letter, Secretary of the Navy Kenneth Braithwaite explicitly tells the governor that he intends to declare this land as excess, and that puts into motion an entire return of ancestral lands process according to Guam law, which in a federal law back during Congressman Underwood's days validated or went along with Guam's law that says that lands returned to the government of Guam will be placed into the Ancestral Lands Land Bank. And then the Ancestral Lands Commission goes through an entire probate process, or the equivalent, pardon me, the equivalent of a probate process administratively, in order to determine who the pre-condemnation owners of the land are, and then determine who all of their heirs are. And so this was going on, this was going to happen, and then the governor stops it. The governor starts to enter into negotiations with the military without the knowledge of the public, without the knowledge or consent of the Guam legislature. This is why we call it Hail Caesar. You know, the governor acting as though she's the only elected official on this island, and I get it, she's the governor. But when you say that you are transparent, and when you say that you want to work together with people, this exercise of the commitment of $1 billion and a 100-year lease of land that was going to be returned to the government of Guam anyway, you're not acting as you speak.
Yeah, so sad.
You're not walking your talk. But that's not the worst of it. That really isn't. The military, this is the worst part. The military is rolling back on one of the 4 pillars of the 2011 programmatic agreement that was painstakingly negotiated between the Secretary of the Navy at the time, and at the time Governor's Chief Policy Advisor Arthur Clark, who is like one of the most reputable attorneys on this island. He was able to finagle these 4 pillars out of the U.S. military. And it's a contract. That's what the programmatic agreement is. It's a contract between the U.S. Navy and Guam about what it is that the government of Guam and the people of Guam are giving up in exchange for the concessions that the military will make to the government and the people of Guam. Among them is called the net negative pillar. And the net negative pillar stated that they didn't know how many acres or how many square meters of land, for that matter. But once the military buildup is done, the federal government, and not just the U.S. military, but the federal government will have reduced its footprint of land on this island by X number of square meters, square acres, whatever the case may be. The military now, according to Speaker Terlaje's breaking news this morning, a special message to the people of Guam, is going back on that promise, is violating that promise. And it all has to do with, well, apparently because the governor said so, and some members of the legislature, according to Speaker Terlaje, are in cahoots on this, they're okay with it. Our own leadership, our own government of Guam is okay with this. For the first time in the history of this island, we have leaders who are turning their backs on our ancestral lands laws, on our policies in the government of Guam about the return of excess land. And not only are they going to build a $1 billion medical campus, this is at our expense, by the way. We're the ones paying for it as taxpayers. Not only are they going to build that campus there, but 2 of the conditions, according to the speaker, are 1, that the military gets to build its missile defense system right next to it.
Jeez.
It's great planning, right?
Yep.
And two, the military doesn't have to pay for the medical care that they would receive at the hospital.
In kind.
It'd be in kind. So we, the people of Guam, and we've seen GMH's operations already. We already are footing the bill for Guam Memorial Hospital's inefficient operations. We now will be footing the bill for Guam Memorial Hospital's inefficient operations, plus 100% of its inefficient operations to service the military, which has hundreds of billions of dollars in funding from the United States government. But now we get to lease the land from them.
And you know what, Chino?
Yeah.
So, I think that the governor
Yeah.
showed her hand too early in the game, right?
Yeah.
So after she got that letter from the Secretary of the Navy,
That she hid, that she never
Right.
disclosed.
okay, and then she expressed to them that she would like to lease the land or whatever, right, to go to hospital. Now they're saying you don't have a choice, right?
According to the speaker's message, yeah. That's what. I mean, this is just all.
You got to know when to hold.
We're being gaslit here by both our governor and the U.S. military command on the island. Let's go to the letter or the special message from the speaker so you guys can see exactly what she says. I'll read along with you. You ready?
Hang on, let me make sure that it's queued up and I got everything in there.
This is a statement from Speaker THERESE entitled "Unilateral Actions Without Transparency or Consent from the People of Guam Only Moves Us Backward." She said backwards, which I hate. Not forward. Just a grammatical thing, right? It has come to my attention that the governor and Rear Admiral Benjamin Nicholson met with Senator Joe San Agustin, Senator Will Parkinson, Senator Dwayne San Nicolas, Senator Roy Quinata, and others yesterday to inform them that the military will be delivering a lease at 3 p.m. today for the governor's signature. You have to go to the next slide. My understanding is that the lease will obligate the government of Guam for in-kind hospital services to military personnel and their families in exchange for GovGuam use of, I was wrong, it's not 102, but 120 plus acres of the Lålo Eagles Field land. Further, the missile defense system will still be built adjacent to the new hospital, and other restrictions, including height, will be imposed, and that the military can no longer meet its obligation under the congressionally sanctioned net negative promise to the government of Guam for return of land in exchange for the hardships put on the people of Guam to accommodate the negative effects of the military buildup. I want to stop here for a second.
Okay.
I am a supporter of the military buildup. I truly am. But I think anyone who says that there won't be any negative effects
Right.
of such a buildup is Pollyanna. You just have to face reality. And it doesn't have to be the military. It could be any substantial development where you get an influx of population and an influx of construction and activity. We see it already. The buildup has caused housing prices and rents to rise on our island. We're not seeing increases in crime from the military community, and hopefully we don't. But perhaps a major reason why we're not seeing that influx is because the 5,000 Marines are not yet here yet. And again, it doesn't have to be Marines. It could be any influx of people that you get into a small island like this. There are going to be negative effects. So even though I'm a supporter of the military buildup, I see what the speaker is saying when she says negative effects. Let's go back to her message.
Okay.
It also requires the government of Guam to begin planning all over again because the over $1.8 million spent by Matrix and all estimates by the Army Corps must be scrapped and additional unknown costs incurred to meet the tremendous obligations under the proposed lease. Neither the Army Corps of Engineers nor the governor's consultant Matrix planned for these types of terms when they asked the government to set aside $35 million a year of Guam taxpayers' money and $300 million in ARP funds. I'll stop right here for a second. So Matrix is the government of Guam's long-time experienced planner and program management agency. I think they've been around since the Camacho administration, and they have been responsible for almost all of the major planning that you see on the island. The reason they're so critical to the island is because our master plan that the government of Guam is working with, the comprehensive master plan, was formed in 1967 and was never updated. So that's the significance of Matrix. Now, the $35 million that the speaker refers to, that's $35 million in general fund revenues to pay for the future debt service, basically the loan payment on this $1 billion that bond that we're likely going to take out. It's likely going to be, I don't know if it's going to be a revenue bond. I don't know what kind of revenues we have to pledge, but maybe a general obligation bond. Or no, maybe a municipal leaseback. It could be a municipal leaseback. Okay, let's go on with that same message, that same slide. It is clear that the cost will only increase tremendously and that they are unknown at this time because no one has done a study as to what will be necessary to build a hospital to accommodate all these parties or how much longer that will take. She's got a point. If we're now introducing a new patient load to Guam Memorial Hospital in the form of military dependents, military servicemen and women and their dependents, we have to increase the size of this new hospital that we're going to build. And if the military is now imposing a height variance or a height restriction, then that means they're going to have to change the design. It's going to have to go out wider, and they're going to have to redo whatever that is.
And is this going to be like a public hospital, or is it going to be?
It's a public hospital.
And so they won't be able to. There's no preference given, right? Whether it's a local or a military. Can they push them away since they're not paying?
No, that's the whole thing. In-kind services. They would have to.
There's no physical.
But in a public hospital, you can't turn anyone away at the emergency room.
And no preference, unless triage, right, or whatever, right?
They figure that out when you get there to the emergency room. Yeah. So, in any hospital that has an emergency room, cannot turn away a patient. The only thing that would sweeten this deal a little is that the military is going to pay for the hospital's construction. Then I'd be like, all right.
Yeah.
But I don't. That information is not coming out from the speaker. Let's go back to her messages, or her special message. She says, it is also unclear if the civilian residents of Guam will be the priority of this hospital should it be full. And without a copy of the lease, we can only guess who the priority in this hospital will be if it's full. But really, what is most egregious is the intentional timing of a lease on the day of the governor's State of the Island address, while a bill that was passed unanimously is sitting on her desk, which simply asks the governor to vet any potential lease with the legislature and the people of Guam. Without vetting, any governor can single-handedly choose to enter into leases with the federal government and obligate the people of Guam for generations without their say. It is a mockery of our already limited self-government and the three-branch system, and it is akin to the naval governors of the past who ignored the wishes of the legislature and the people of Guam. There is no reason we cannot build a new hospital while vetting the details, the costs, the obligations, the location, and to ensure that it is going to benefit the people of Guam first. This is a huge step backward for Guam after... I'm sorry, I can't see what that says.
Okay, pause.
Well, let me go to the message that I have here. Where is that? This is a huge step backward for Guam after getting congressional and military support of the net negative promise, and follows a string of other broken promises by the military, such as avoidance of historic sites, preservation of endangered species, mitigation of residential housing costs resulting from military buildup, and cleanup of contamination. I think you can go to the second to the last slide. That should be okay to put up. We might as well have a naval governor if the people will have no say from now on, and our governor can single-handedly deal with the federal government or some foreign government, and if the pursuit of land return and justice for ancestral landowners is given up by one person acting alone after decades of struggle by our entire community. Generations of leaders worked hard and together to stand up against the injustices of a long history of land takings and demanded accountability. We have our own resources, including land, and can surely build a hospital without loss of autonomy, loss of land, and without inflicting additional harm. I agree with the speaker.
I do too.
From the jump, we've questioned, why the hell do you want to build a hospital at Eagles Field? Why in the world are you transplanting a hospital from the center of the population, of population density, being the Tumuning Deredo area,
Tatuha.
and taking it to the other side of the island, taking it from the, what is that? From the western side of the island, transplanting it to the eastern side of the island, where the population center is not, bringing it further from Agate, Umatic, Maritzo,
Yeah.
further from the northern villages. I'm sorry, further from the population dense northern areas. And it just makes everyone wonder, because the governor has dug in her heels. And as the speaker said, just last week, the legislature passed a bill. The 10 days has not yet lapsed, giving the legislature no opportunity to override a governor's veto. This bill is still on the governor's desk. This is bill number 12, which would require, and see, this is where the legislature should have acted sooner. And this is where we have to examine our senators and see who was part of the backstabbing of the people of Guam that happened today, that is happening today.
Is it the name of the list of the senators that you read out earlier?
It's well, they were in the meeting. We don't know what their participation was, but they were in the meeting, and a closed-door meeting at that, which just reeks of a violation of the Open Government Act. This bill that would have stopped this entire thing from happening is on the governor's desk. It's sitting there because the 10 days hasn't lapsed. If this lease is signed today, which that bill would have stopped if it became law, and the going theory was that the governor was going to veto it and the legislature would override it, because all 15 senators, including the ones who were in that meeting, voted in favor of this bill. And you know why they did? Because they didn't want to face the wrath of the original landowners and anyone else who is waiting for some sort of compensation for any unjust taking of land. And when I say unjust, what I mean by that is they weren't fairly compensated, or their ancestors weren't fairly compensated for the land. So anyway, this was supposed to have happened. I lost my train of thought here, so I'm just kind of I'm winging it right now until it comes back to me. This bill in the Guam legislature, it passed with 15 votes on the governor's desk. The governor rushes it. I'm just going to guess that she called up the admiral and she's like, look, we're in a bind here. I need you to sign that lease. I need to sign it myself, preferably at the State of the Island address so I can make a big hoo-ha about it. And then and do it before the 10 days lapses on when the legislature sent me this bill that I hate, because they're going to stop it if they override my veto. And so it makes this, I got my train of thought back. It makes you wonder, all of this effort being put into Eagles Field, she is just not relenting. She's not going to listen to the legislature. She's not going to listen to anybody else, even the doctors and the nurses, even though she can't call Guam Memorial Hospital because the phone lines and the network is down.
And
because the hospital just can't operate efficiently.
And at the same time, for health reasons, you want her to go enjoy a little swim in a public pool.
Oh, it's closed.
Yeah, it's closed. It's closed.
Yeah, Agania swimming pool. You're talking about
right.
Yeah. We can't fix the Agania swimming pool.
Right.
We can't. But we can hire lots of lawyers at the governor's office. Another story coming out of Kandit today. I digress. So it just makes us curious. Who is getting rich off of this deal? Bob Klitsky from 93.3 FM The Point. He has his afternoon show from 4 to 6 p.m. called Tall Tales with Jose Martinez. Bob Klitsky has a theory. He says someone should do research, and we would, but we're busy. All right, the CNMI keeps us busy. Dumb Guam politics keeps us busy. Crime on Guam keeps us busy. We just don't. Someone else needs to do this. He says, if someone will take a look at the land transactions over the last couple of years, and if you notice anyone buying up these just innocuous tracts of land on the way, either way, to Fadian or Lålo or whatever it's called, give it some insight into who's going to make some money off of this, because the land values in that area will climb.
Yep.
Because of this hospital.
Yep.
And this new installation. Another thing I should think about is, does the military need any land in that area, which might explain their net negative thing? Because what if, and I'm just speaking out loud here, just my curiosity going, what if people close with the administration knew that the military needed this land, so they bought the land at bargain prices within the last couple of years with the full intention of leasing the land to the military?
Dude, that makes sense, bro. That makes...
I'm just saying.
Right.
You know, you talk about corruption on Guam, right? I mean, people out in the scene might ask me all the time, you know, what's corruption like on Guam? And I'm like, it's extremely sophisticated.
Yeah, dude.
You don't see it. It's not right in front of your face. And that's because we have professional corruption people on this island who have been corrupting the system for decades now. They all belong to the same families. So,
hint, hint.
When that bill was at the legislature, everyone stood up in support of the original landowners. It was just the nice thing to say, right? But the conviction you can see from Speaker TERLAJE and Senator Chris Barnett. Let's play what Speaker TERLAJE first said. How many Speaker TERLAJE slots do we have? Is it one or two?
Just one.
Let's play her slot right now.
Okay, here we go.
And then we're going to try and get a hold of Senator Chris Barnett to see if he'll join us on the phone this morning. But let's hear from Speaker TERESE TERLAJE first.
Not fair. The compensation was not just. And the threats were overwhelming. And they made the landowners act in fear. And really, they had no choice, let's face it. And so whether we control return of the land, I can face that reality that I, as a senator, cannot give the land to the original landowners. If I could, I would. I can't. But I can hold the military to their promises of net negative. I can hold the Secretary of the Navy to his promise that it is excess land, not necessary, and should be returned. And I can hold our current actions to those before us, the ones we praised during Mes Chamorro for standing up for us, jumping over fences to prove the point. That no, they will never give this to us willingly. They will pass laws and laws that says it's illegal for us as a government of Guam to give it back to our ancestral landowners. They tried to tell us that about a lot of things. And if we acted in fear of them, we would never have returned anything. But we didn't. I'm so proud of those before me who did that, despite the threat. And we have always had that threat, and I would suggest we still live under that threat with the properties that have previously been returned. That the military is going to come in here and take them all back, and that they're going to come in and take more when they need more. And they will take our waters and prohibit use of our waters when they need them. So this is really not a debate about our powers versus the military's and whether Congress is going to move or not. It's really just, what are we as a local government going to do? What are we going to require our agencies to come down here and show before they, on their own, enter into leases with the federal government? And it's because of our unique history. And maybe if we didn't have this unique history, we wouldn't care who enters into what lease. But we have a very unique history of land takings, one that I hope no one in here can forget. And that's why maybe an extra process, such as just the simple one of just get legislative approval. Just show us the terms. And do what we do with everything else. Show us it's a great deal for Guam. Show us there is no other way. Show us that we gave up on return of that land. and we're going to lease it back. They took it from us, and we are going to lease it back. When they tried to sell us FENA back, and the legislatures before us were down there protesting. The governor was in here in his State of the Island address telling them, no way, you give it back.
This is a turning point in our history of self-government, and I hope that as Guamanians we're paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that this is a lot to digest, and if you haven't been following the story, it tangles here and there, and the allure of a new hospital. We want a new hospital, sure, but why does it have to be at Eagles Field? Like, what is the significance of this particular piece of property?
Mm-hmm.
Pieces of property that the Secretary of the Navy was going to return to us. And why couldn't the governor engage in this discussion with the legislature, who, the first branch of the government, the direct representatives of the people?
She don't care, dude.
Why were only certain senators allowed in a closed-door, probably illegal meeting based on the Open Government Act, along with the admiral? Why are the governor and these senators bending over as the military breaks one of the four pillars of the programmatic agreement? The whole purpose of the programmatic agreement
Mm-hmm.
was that this is set in stone. This would not be broken. It's akin to the federal government breaking the covenant with the CNMI a couple of times.
They can do whatever they want.
They do whatever they want. Exactly. And if the military has some sort of, if this really is critical to the military, the keeping of this land for the missile defense system,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure it is critical to the military, why couldn't the admiral speak with the people? You had Admiral Bushong. Remember him?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Great guy.
Yeah.
He was always trying to talk with the local community,
Mm-hmm.
always trying to, assure the local community of the partnership that we had with the Navy and with the Defense Department. You had, who was the admiral right before Nicholson?
French? No.
No, not French. French was another one
Mm-hmm.
who was very much all about, there was a woman.
Yeah.
She was cool with the community as well.
Yeah.
The one where there was a viral video of some woman, some flight attendant who looked
Mm-hmm.
like her, and everyone was like, "That's the admiral,"
Mm-hmm.
and the admiral was like, "That is not me."
There was another one before her too. I think she was Filipina.
Oh, I don't remember.
She was like a.
I don't remember. Oh, so I don't know. I think the admiral has just made a political mistake, and if in the run-up to the welcoming of 5,000 Marines is supposed to be important to the Defense Department, they're going about things the wrong way.
Yeah.
Just because the governor is going to sign this lease doesn't mean that all of the people
Mm-hmm.
are supportive of it. And, I wonder what the land activists and the Chamorro culture activists have to say about this, because many of them have been supporters of Governor Lulian Guerrero. Many of them have said, that they like Governor Lulian Guerrero because she's going to protect the lands and protect the Chamorro people and all this stuff.
Right now, there are a lot of butterflies.
Yeah.
Okay. Being colored. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the printouts of butterflies.
The printouts of butterflies.
Yeah. And they're being colored by.
Oh, you for placards to hold up in protest.
Yes.
Well, do it. Do it before 3 p.m. today if you're going to protest, because apparently the admiral is going to go to Adelup and deliver a signed lease for the governor to sign. I'm going to guess during the State of the Island address.
Yep.
Which is tonight at 6:30 p.m., which Kandit will be covering live for you. Anyway, so Speaker TERLAJE wasn't the only one who really stood up to, let's just call it the tyranny of Adelup.
Mm-hmm.
And just the amount of power that this governor has wielded over the past 4, now going on 5 years, now manifesting itself in this billion-dollar deal that is taking a dump all over our 20, 30-year-old ancestral lands policies. I wonder what the late Senator Angel Santos would have to say about this. But let's hear what Senator Chris Barnett had to say during the debate on Bill number 12.
All right.
Interested in the debate that's playing out here on the legislative floor. I follow this issue very closely, maybe a little too closely. When I was a member of the media, I too sent Freedom of Information Act requests. And the thing about sending these FOIA requests is they require a great deal of creativity. I'm lucky my mother made me creative because I was able to get the letter in which the Secretary of the Navy said that the Eagles Field property was added to the list of parcels eligible for return to the government of Guam. I reported on this issue. One of the headlines from November 8, 2021, Eagles Field included in DOD excess land return, but GovGuam could keep it. Very familiar with some of the original landowners. I sat on a kitchen table with Elsie Flores and her elderly father, both of them suffering from cancer. Both of them living in what some would call squalor on Chamorro Land Trust property. And I got the impression that they were struggling to make ends meet, but that they were eking out an existence, selling Roschetti, little things to make little money because all the opportunity they had to make money off of land that they had previously owned went up in smoke because Uncle Sam and the federal government took the land. So I sat on that kitchen table with Miss Elsie, and she unrolled map after map. I asked her if she ever went to law school because I felt like I was talking to a lawyer. She was very well versed, very informed, probably too informed for this administration. Probably makes them uncomfortable, but she knew what she was talking about. I listened as her father told the story of the land that was in his family, the land that they used to grow golai, zanfruta, the land they used to raise chickens and cows and goats. And when I listened to them tell these stories, it reminded me of the stories that my grandparents used to tell me. About the land my grandmother's family owned in Radio Barragata. Everyone always asks me, what family are you? When I tell them that my grandmother's a Cabeza Flores, they assume that I must have land. And I correct them, oh no, we don't have land. I'm surprised we're not Taitano family because we don't have land. We had land. Had land that we sold to the federal government. I saw the papers. Something like 2 cents an acre. Some, and I wouldn't agree, would call that compensation. And when I sat there and spoke with Miss Elsie and her father, I went to them because the governor of this island had spoken to the media about this issue and had said to the media with much conviction that it was her belief it was her belief that these landowners in Eagles Field had been compensated. It's funny what we believe nowadays. Now, let me tell you, Miss Elsie had some choice words for our governor that morning. Choice words. Show me where. Show me where we were compensated. Because they weren't compensated. They weren't compensated. Dudum and jive. So many stories we're hearing about this excess land, this billion-dollar healthcare complex. And the only story I believe is the one that the original landowners are telling us. A previous speaker had asked the question, what if we don't build a hospital there and the federal government takes this land back? What then? Well, I'll say that these original landowners want us to fight. They want us to fight for them. And that's exactly what we're going to do, most of us anyway. And if we go down fighting and the federal government does take that land back because we took a stand, I'll be able to sleep at night. And I think they would too. And we owe it to these original landowners. We owe it to all of the great leaders who have come before us, who have stood in this hall and others, who have stood up to the federal government, who demanded that we be treated equally. And I say we continue to stand in the memory of those leaders, in the memory of all the original landowners, and in the memory of people like my grandmother's family. Maybe they were grateful, but more likely than not, they were duped. Duped by sophisticated people who maybe were more book smart than them. And I'm just very bothered by this direction that we're going in. When you have the United States Navy in the form of the Secretary of the Navy writing that land is excess, very clearly, in black and white, documents in black and white. Black and white don't lie. And when I see these, I'm tired of seeing this. I don't want to hear it anymore from the administration on this billion-dollar healthcare complex. We support the building of a new hospital. Of course we do. Of course we do. We're the ones that have to go to Guam Memorial Hospital. Water dripping on our head. Toilet that won't flush. Maybe sometimes being served by a doctor who's wanted for something in another jurisdiction. Of course we support the hospital. But when the governor's people came to this building less than a year ago and testified on the billion-dollar healthcare complex and the location of it, we learned that Eagles Field wasn't even the top choice to build the new hospital. It was down the list. So it boggles my mind and it angers me that we continue to go down this path faster and faster. Lana, I bet at Adelaide right now, they're just waiting to sign that lease before we can debate and pass this bill. So they could laugh at us and laugh at how, because of the enabling that some of these members in this body and others who have served in previous terms have done, enabling this administration to wield more power than they're entitled to. They're drunk on it. They're drunk on it. And you know, when you're drunk, you don't act right. So it's time to face the sober reality that these original landowners aren't going to go away quietly, and we're not either. This bill is also about loopholes. It closes loopholes that this administration and maybe previous administrations, possibly future administrations, will drive their agendas through. 99-year lease, 50-year lease. And what? When the lease is up, what's going to happen? Is Uncle Sam going to bulldoze our billion-dollar healthcare complex? 99 years, to quote the speaker, sounds excess to me. Sounds more than excess. And let's talk about the threat of China. I was just asked by the media today, what is my opinion on deleting TikTok? Because China's using it to spy on us. So let's talk about the threat of China. If the threat of China is so real that we're going to use it as an argument to keep these lands from going back to the original landowners, then why would we even build this billion-dollar healthcare complex in the first place? If the thinking is that it could be leveled to the ground when China attacks us. If the threat of China is real, then let's return these lands to the original landowners and let them die on the property that was theirs to begin with, if that's what it takes. So I just ask that we stand up. It bothers me to the core, especially in Mestamora, that we're here talking about land back. And, you know, Defunto Onget Santos told me one time, he said, you know, Chris, yes, it's the federal government, but we do it to ourselves too. And that's what I'm seeing right now. Our own people. You talk about land back. In the words of the Navy in black and white, the land is excess. We could get it back. But our own people are keeping it from our own people. And you talk to these original landowners of Lålo properties, they tried to divide them. They had meetings up at Adelup. But when I talked to the original landowners, those meetings didn't work. They offered money. The previous speaker mentioned the land bank. What land bank? And so I'm not okay when we talk about land back, but when our own people are keeping the land from us, that all of a sudden we're going to be complicit because we support the governor. This is not about supporting the governor. This is about ensuring that we as a legislature maintain our separate but equal powers that have been eroded, often by the very hands that serve in this hall. We do have a legacy of fighting for the return of excess lands, of fighting for the original landowners. That's why this billion-dollar healthcare complex, and it really seems like the only people supporting it is the administration. You talk to the doctors, they want it here. Lillian Posada said, Jotnya, Chalampago, the list was long. This is about taking a stand for our people. That's what we're elected to do. Elected to take a stand. And whether or not there's a threat of China, I say we can still stand up to the federal government about this and stand up to our own government, because that's really what it's turning into. Standing up to our own people and fighting for the return of lands that belong to our own people.
You know, I never thought I would see the day when our own governor, really, truly, and we've had governors who've done questionable things indeed, but when we would have our own governor turn his or her back on us, on our own people. And Senator Chris Barnett, you know, we haven't been the best of friends with Senator Chris Barnett. You know, we've had our differences with him prior to him being a senator. But, I mean, he's just speaking our tune. He's singing our tune.
Yep.
And drunk with power, he's absolutely right. And he brought up the letter. He said they're acting like this letter never existed. The governor, if you remember this, we did this story. We broke this story about this letter where the Secretary of the Navy, Kenneth Braithwaite, he writes to the governor and he says, we want to return this land. We've identified it as part of the excess inventory. And as part of our net negative commitment under the programmatic agreement,
Yep.
which now is out the door apparently, we can return this land. And we broke that story. We asked Adelup, even though it was in black and white, we asked Adelup, hey, why are you guys going to build a hospital on land that the Navy was going to return? And Adelup said, oh, no, they weren't going to return it. Well, you have this letter in black and white that says so. Silence. Nothing. And so Senator Chris Barnett brings up this letter. Speaker THERESE, everyone's brought up this letter, all right? And said, what are you doing? The Navy was going to return this land, and then you're going to lease it from them?
Yep.
Like, why are you going to lease land that they're going to return? And Adelup just says, no, they're not. They're not going to return the land.
Jeez.
And apparently, we've gotten to the point where they're not going to return the land. But let's see what this letter says. It was a January 15, 2021 letter from Secretary of the Navy Kenneth Braithwaite. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Are you able to zoom in on it?
Yep.
Dear Governor Leon Guerrero, thank you for your October 5, 2020 letter and for taking the time to meet with me during my visit to Guam on October 18, 2020. In my July 2, 2020 letter to you, I committed to work with you on determining the viability of returning Department of Defense property for a future Guam medical complex. I appreciate our discussion as we balance the urgent need to support the development of such a facility for the people of Guam with the requirements and capabilities of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command and DoD operational components. I am pleased to now identify the DoD parcel for the medical complex and add it to the list of parcels eligible for return to the territory of Guam. The site is one of the three referenced in your October 5th letter and is located within parcel number 16, lot A7A and B, Anderson-Barragata Annex, as described in the June 2019 Guam Economic Development Authority report enclosed in your letter of August 18, 2019. My July 2, 2020 letter previously added a 50-acre portion of this site to the net negative inventory, which will now be increased to 102 acres. Attached is an updated version of the comprehensive table and map previously conveyed to you as required by Section 2847 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2019. This parcel will be subject to all existing utility easements, licenses, leases, and continued access from Route 15 to the next generation radar antenna. We have Senator Chris Barnett calling us in right now. Hi, good morning, Senator.
Hey, Troy.
Hi, good morning, sir. You're on live with us. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to good morning.
No problem. Good morning, Kandit. Thanks for having me, Troy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Senator, for your time. First, your reaction to the news coming out of Speaker Sirlahi's office. We just played your 15-minute speech before the legislature on Bill 12 about Adelup being drunk on power, about the black and white letter from the Secretary of the Navy returning the lands. What is your reaction now to this net negative promise being broken and the governor and maybe some senators actually being in cahoots with this broken promise.
Yeah, Troy, I just got to start with my speech on the floor. I felt I spoke very passionately, and, we weren't sure where the lay of the land was going to end up when, we voted on Bill 12. And frankly, I was very surprised that we're able to get unanimous support because, this has been the governor's pet project, and it's no secret that the Adelup 6 really push that agenda, that Adelup agenda. And so I was very surprised and actually optimistic when we got unanimous support for not just Bill 12, but the other companion measures that Speaker TERLAJE had introduced relative to increasing transparency and really the number of eyes on this whole process for the billion-dollar healthcare complex. That being said, when I heard the news yesterday, I really had to kick myself because that's what you get for being optimistic. I think that I've come this far by following my gut, and my gut feeling was that although we were able to get that unanimous support, I think that my colleagues who maybe are a little too eager to support the Adelup agenda maybe fell on the right side of the debate and the vote because maybe, they felt pressure from original landowners. I mean, rightfully so. But I really kicked myself in the noggin yesterday when I heard this news from one of my colleagues who attended this secret meeting and laid out the terms. And, really baseline, this is not about obstructing this process or even power checking the governor. It's really about maintaining what has eroded over the last few legislative terms. And that really is our status as a separate but equal branch of government. I mean, that some senators in the past few legislatures have enabled Adelup to act this way. And when you have unanimous support for a great measure like Bill 12, which it's really a no-brainer, we're talking about leases that the government of Guam enters into being vetted by the legislature. And especially with this billion-dollar healthcare complex, it's such a huge process and such a big deal that I think the more eyes on this, the more hands that we have guiding this process, the better, because, the governor and the administration and even some of my more colleagues in their zeal and their excitement and their enthusiasm to push this pet project through, they might miss some things. They might obligate the people of Guam to things that, we don't want to be obligated to. And I've said from the beginning that this whole process with this billion-dollar healthcare complex and putting it over at Lålo Eagles Field, the public has been kept out of this. The transparency that the governor says that they've had in this process has really just been window dressing, in my opinion. And I'm really disappointed. And myself, I felt like maybe we should have pushed harder to convince my colleagues. And I would love to hear from my colleagues that attended this secret meeting why they think this is a good idea for the people of Guam. There's just so many questions we have, from putting a missiles defense site adjacent to the healthcare complex. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I want to go, to a doctor's appointment at a big Target for China. So there's that. There's also that we're going to, in exchange for this lease, provide free in-kind medical healthcare services to the military and their families. Where does that leave the people of Guam? Because we all know that so many of our people can't afford health insurance, can't afford health care. And if we're going to roll out the red carpet for people who can afford it and leave our people sitting in the cold and left behind in the dust, then I don't support that at all. And I think that, any of my colleagues who do, they need to be called out and they need to explain why they think this is a great deal for Guam, because I think this is a dark day for Guam. We have our history with the naval government. I feel like at this point, with the collusion that's gone on with Governor Liu and the Department of Defense, I feel like in a lot of ways we might as well have a naval governor again, because really the checks and balances have been eroded. And, oftentimes it's the colleagues in the legislature who are helping guide that erosion. So, yeah, I'm very disappointed. And, I think that the governor's speech tonight, seeing as how a lot of her thunder was stolen this morning, I think it's going to fall a little flat. And I think that, there's a lot of questions that not just I have. I'm sure you've got a ton of questions. The media is, they're blowing up everyone's phone this morning. And so, again, this is what you get. And I think when you conduct processes like this behind closed doors in secret. I mean, we can't, out of one side of our mouth call for transparency, especially for some of my colleagues who voted for these measures and supported these measures and stood up on that floor and talked about transparency, and then they're going to turn around and do a 180 because the governor snaps her fingers and clicks her heels? Oh no, I can't stand for that.
Well, so we assure you we will be pulling thoughts from the Bill 12 discussion from your colleagues who allegedly were in that closed-door meeting, which also calls into question the Open Government Act, right? But I was wondering what concerns you have with the military command on island, their relationship with the people of Guam moving forward, and as we approach the arrival of the Marines in 2024, 2025, what concerns you have for the erosion of the relationship based on... Oh, my phone is reconnecting. I'm so... Senator, are you there? I'm sorry about that. Darn it. I think we might have lost the connection. Senator, are you there? Hi, are you there, Senator? Hi, there you are. Oh, are you on Snake Road? I think he said Agania Heights. I think he was on Snake Road. So I was going to ask him, maybe he'll call back, but I was going to ask him, what his concerns are about the relationship between the people of Guam and the military going into now the larger part of the military buildup, and that's the arrival of the actual Marines. You would think that the Admiral, who's in charge of Joint Region Marianas, oh, there he is. Hi, Senator. Sorry about that.
No, Troy, I think it's us because we just left PD and we're coming through Snake Road and the service isn't so good here. But okay. If you don't mind, I kind of lost you halfway through the question. Oh,
so as we approach the larger part of the buildup, the one where the Marines actually come to the island, I would have thought that the person in charge of Joint Region Marianas, the Admiral, would want to strengthen the military's relationship with the local communities. So I'm sort of wondering what your thoughts are on how... Oh, son of a gun. I'm not going to disparage any phone company here. I'm wondering which carrier he has. It's not our carrier. Son of a gun.
But for a split second there...
We were on a roll. I think my question's too long anyway. I should have just... Oh, boy. Maybe he'll call back. So I had that question. And I also want to ask him whether anything can be done before 3 p.m. today. And maybe with the release of this news, the Admiral's probably at a loop already.
Yep.
Like, here you go, Governor. I signed it. Wouldn't it be the smartest thing to do, Admiral Nicholson? I mean, oh, there he is. Hi.
Hi, sorry.
Oh, no, not at all. Did you get the question?
Okay, so you're basically asking me this late stage in the military buildup, should the Admiral and DOD be doing more for the community outside the fence line?
I'm wondering what your concerns are about the relationship between the military and the local community going into the buildup now with this wrinkle,
Yeah, I think what DOD has done is it's pretty simple. They're just doing divide and conquer. They have a governor who is very willing to help them accomplish what they need to accomplish. But I feel like what they're accomplishing, what they're pushing, benefits the military and the military buildup. But oftentimes in looking at the direction we're going in, everyone outside the fence line is left holding the bag. We have one island, but there's two school systems. We have one island, but one cost of living inside the fence line, one out. And I definitely think that the military, the Admiral, DOD, and especially the governor has to do more to stick up for the people of Guam. Like, if this buildup is supposed to elevate our community, then it has to elevate everybody across all lines. And I think that's very important. I don't like this dealing in secret behind closed doors to give, essentially the military what we want. Because like I said before, we've had a naval governor. Been there, done that, and not really liking the vibes of what's going on, just moving forward. And so, yeah, I'm disappointed. I think there's a lot of things the military can do, and the governor as well. She's sitting on, $250 million for this new healthcare complex. But look around our island, public safety, education, healthcare, the basics. I mean, we're down in the dumps with all three of these issues. And so I don't think that it's, reasonable, realistic even, for the governor to continue to sit on this pile of money for this pie-in-the-sky billion-dollar healthcare complex that is years away. We have so many pressing issues facing the people of Guam today.
Senator, do you have a suspicion as to why the governor is pushing so hard and she's unrelenting on this particular piece of land for this medical complex?
And Troy, I've asked myself that. I've like you, I've done the FOIA request, and I just can't get to the bottom of it. I don't know if it's got something to do with her business interests, but I mean, when Lilian Posadas testified before the legislature in the last term, late last year, she had said, and she told the body that Eagles Field, the Lålo site, wasn't even the top-rated site for the new hospital. And so you're right, it does beg the question: why is she pushing so hard for this site that, according to all the experts that, were lucky enough to be involved in this process, they didn't even agree that it was the best site for the, the location of the new hospital, and I find that that's a real theme with this administration that I have a problem with, is they're only willing to listen to the voices that are saying what they want to hear, and everyone else gets shut up. You talk about that secret meeting yesterday. I mean, they didn't even invite the speaker. And so I don't understand, if you're going to push something this big, doing it in front of 5 senators is a slap in the face to the people of Guam. You know what I mean? Come down to the people's house and explain to the body and to the people, sell this idea. The governor has a business background, and she's coming from the private sector. And I think that's why so much of this process has been the way they decide things in bank boardrooms, and not the way we're supposed to decide things out here, with public scrutiny and transparency. And I think that, it's her second term. She hasn't learned that lesson, but I think, it's going to be a hard adjustment for her. But we're just going to keep pushing. It's discouraging. Yes, sometimes we feel defeated, but like I said on the floor, I feel like, the people who are the original landowners, and not even that, I mean, in the sake of, transparency and even the wise use of our taxpayers' dollars, I don't think this is the best deal for the people of Guam, whether you're an original landowner or not. And we're just going to keep fighting this until, we reach the end. And if we put up the good fight, and the governor, with all her power and authority that's enabled by, any colleagues in the legislature, is able to push this thing through and get it done, I'll be able to sleep at night knowing that we put up the good fight all the way till the end.
Well, speaking of that good fight, and my last question is probably the most important one. Is there anything that you guys can do before 3 p.m. today to stop this lease from happening? Can you take her to court for an injunction? What can happen?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at the drawing board now, and I don't know legislatively. I mean, obviously that was the first thing that we kind of looked at, is what could we do? Could we introduce a bill? Could we call for an emergency? And I think the governor knows full well what we're capable of doing, and that, she really, I feel, misguided the people of Guam. And it's also, again, disingenuous for her to have a bill that addresses this very issue that we're talking about sitting on her desk, but for her to race with the Admiral and DOD to be in cahoots with these senators who push her agenda, and to get this lease signed, basically on the eve of the window closing, when she's got to act on Bill 12 and those other measures. I mean, it's just so disrespectful to the legislature as a body. And I think just baseline, right? This is about us being a separate but equal branch of government, and we can't reach that status when we've got, people in our body who are willing to just go to bat for the executive branch at all costs.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what we can do. I mean, we thought about the court thing. I'm not a lawyer, I defer to the speaker for the way forward, but I think right now we're all just kind of processing this, because this whole process with this billion-dollar healthcare complex and the Lålo, the Eagles Field issue, it just seems like when you think it can't get any worse, the governor pushes the envelope further into the land of disrespect. And so, while I was optimistic when we got the unanimous support, a little voice inside my head said, hey, don't celebrate too much, because you never know what's going to happen. I should have listened to that voice, because more times than not, it's right.
And here we are today. Hail Caesar.
Yeah. The Ides of March. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you, and drive safely. Be well. Thank you. God bless. That was Senator Chris Barnett sharing his sentiments. It's kind of sad hearing him say that there might not be anything left that can be done. They said that they did explore the court option. I don't know. He said he's not a lawyer. Speaker TERLAJE, he's a lawyer. I was messaging with her this morning. She's got a cough, and so she's not able to talk very long. That's why she's not going to do the phone call with us. But I'll message her and ask her about, she is a lawyer, so I'll ask her about the injunction thing. But these two did fight the good fight. And all 15 senators joined along in that fight. It's disheartening to hear that there were at least 5 senators who were in this secret meeting with the governor and the admiral, allegedly. Whether that means that all 5 of them are going along with this, I don't know. We need to ask them. But Chalo, can we, from that session date, can we please pull the thoughts of the speeches of Senators Roy Quinata, Joe San Agustin, Dwayne San Nicolas? He said there's 2 more, right? I don't remember who they are. Roy Quinata.
William
Parkinson.
And
I can't remember who
I don't know what the last one is.
Okay, well, anyway. All right, we've spoken about this at length. We'll see how today will play out. Excuse me. Tonight at 6:30 p.m., we'll be bringing to you live the Governor's State of the Island Address. And prior to that, we'll have a couple of stories coming out of the CNMI. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. On behalf of all of us here at Kandit News, good morning, and God bless you all. The peace of the Lord be with you.
Dull knives are the absolute worst, but I will take any dull knife and put a razor sharp edge on it so you won't have to hack or try to saw your ingredients when prepping your food. I sharpen knives, cleavers, machetes, and much more. Shoot me a text, WhatsApp, or give me a call for more information on how you can get your knives shinard.
I feel that this environment is for anybody that wants to try something new. Whether it is CrossFit or powerlifting, we offer a safe space for someone who's never been athletically inclined to try something that they've never done before.